that's just nasty. Like that's just it's not one is from a tasting standpoint. It's not a consistent flavor because it's all of the leftover tobacco that roller has on the table, and they shove it into that cigar. And then on top of that, you don't know what's going in that.
And I'm committed, fully adapt and overcome. Stay ready, always fit for duty.
Yeah, so I'm actually in the southeast of Wyoming by Nebraska.
Nice. How you liking that?
I really love it. It's a little bit to get used to, especially coming from Maryland. Yeah, I used to live around Annapolis.
Oh shit, yeah.
Yeah, and so coming from over there, the cold is we thought 42 degrees was cold, and out here it's like negative 42 degrees in here.
Yeah.
Ooh, this is chilly.
Oh yeah, man. I hear like I mean obviously never been there, but it's just you see like on the news like that, how cold it is over there.
Oh yeah.
How did you go from, because the coldest I ever been is -12. So how did you even, and then I come from California in Central California, so the coldest for me too is like 38, 40.
Yeah.
And so I remember when I was in can't remember the place, but it was like -12. I thought there's no way to even live here. Like, how do you even walk around? And so how do you even live there now in the wintertime, and just like how do you acclimate to that, I guess? I'm just curious myself.
Yeah. So I mean, the winter clothes that we brought from Maryland are not clothes for Wyoming. It's like fall, fall clothes here. So one, adapting to, all of that. So like you have to wear a different type of jacket and all that kind of stuff. And layers are a big deal. The thing that really helped me adjust, and, because I mean, it's like Murphy's Law. Anything that can happen will happen in a situation like that. And so I found putting like a balaclava or something over my mouth and like my nose, because when it's just that cold, I mean, as soon as you start breathing in either your mouth or your nose, it hurts.
Yeah.
And but no, you can't be out there for prolonged periods of time. Like you have to go out there with a purpose or just stay inside. It's you have to go out there with some intention. You can't just lollygag.
What about cars? How does that affect the cars at all? Or can you even drive? Are they pay the roads and stuff?
Where I'm at, so it's mainly dirt, like dirt and gravel. But I mean, yeah, you can still drive. I mean, your cars, at least ours, yeah, they take a little. Yeah, you can tell they're not too pleased with how cold it is either. But yeah, usually we just take the Jeep. Yeah, but you have to definitely let that thing warm up before you start going for it. But yeah, I mean, it's really not even like, I don't personally like it. Yeah, I mean, I've gone out on the roads when it's, I think, like -10, and it isn't fun. Because I mean, even the speeds out here, like the speeds on the dirt road are, pretty tame. Like they're only like 35 miles an hour. But when you start going out onto like the service road that's like right off the dirt road, that's immediately you're back into 70. And the highway is 80 mile an hour speed limit, so people are on there doing 85, 90.
That's crazy.
It's like, yeah, I'm not, like, for example, we went into town, the only reason we went in is because we have a little one. Like my little dude is only 2.5 years old, but last year he was a year and a half. And we went into town, and I was like, the highway looks like actually pretty nice. Like the sun was shining really good. It just looked wet. And I was like, I like that versus the little back road that we could take that's still paved, but it just, it had like black ice and snow on top. And I'm good. And got on the highway, and dude, I turned all the radio off, like turned everything down, and and she's like, my wife's like, what's wrong? And I was like, I can't explain it. I was like, but I feel like I'm on ice skates.
Damn.
And she was like, really? And I'm doing like 45 on an 80 mile an hour road, and people behind me are pretty much doing the same thing. And I shit you not, it looked like a semi, because we kind of live right by the port of entry for the city. And I shit you not, there was like a semi that was like, it looked still, and it wasn't. It was actually hydroplaning. but like slowly, and then just dumped over. And
Yeah,
like, yeah, I'm gonna I'm gonna try to get off the highway.
that's freaking crazy, man.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, I don't know how you do it.
it's a different world. I mean, like, we have like we heat our house with a wood stove, is what I'm trying to say. And I mean,
Hmm.
that thing, keeps the house at 75. I mean, it'll go all the way up to like 90 if you really stay
Yeah.
hard enough. So, I mean, really, as long as nothing outside breaks, the inside, should be fine. Like, obviously we have a well, and the well pit is in the, obviously in the ground. So we had to adjust to that and putting heat lamps and stuff in there, and that way we don't have all the nice, freeze
Hmm.
in our water, because that's not cool.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Dude, I was stationed in North Carolina when I was in the Marine Corps, and I didn't know it snowed over there. And one year it snowed the whole base, and I was going to go to the gym because they closed all the gyms on base, and I was like, "Well, I'm going to the gym," not knowing that I don't know how to drive in the snow. Then the same thing, I was like hydroplaning on the road. Everyone's just doing it and just
Yeah,
like hitting bumper cars, and no one. I was like, "Oh shit!" I hit a car, like tapped it, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna get out," and the car just kept going. I'm like, "Okay, no one just stops here. I'll get back in my car then," and just everyone just goes on with their life. I'm like, it's kind of weird,
yeah,
but never did it again. Though. I was like, I ain't driving again. Fuck, I ain't gonna do that.
no.
So, but that was only like shit. That was only like 12 degrees. It's like only imagine, like I said, over there. What made you want to go over there to Wyoming from Maryland?
So we originally were kind of looking at living in the Verna Park, Annapolis region, and Baltimore City. That's right there too. That's, I think, only like 25 minutes away. Yeah, beautiful city, but it's starting to kind of, the riffraff and the bad parts of the city are starting to kind of spread out to the, other suburbs in that area. And
Hmm.
I mean, it didn't really jive with me coming out of the service, and I was like, yeah, I don't really want to worry about somebody, busting my window to take, 4 quarters in my cup holder, and then there was people stealing stuff out of people's cars and stealing it off the back, like, magnets and all that kind of stuff, and people trying to take tires off of their cars to, take it to the chop shops and stuff, and I was just like, I'm all right. And so we looked at Wyoming, South Dakota, and Iowa, and came out here, and I just was like, this is gorgeous, and the
Hmm.
amount of outdoor things that you can do, minus the winter time. Obviously, the winter can be. I mean, you can ice fish if that was something you wanted to indoor and you had the proper stuff for it, but
Yeah,
like out here, I mean, outside of the winter months, I mean, you can fish, hunt. You can go and hike on the countless of trails up through the Rockies or Estes and all that kind of stuff. So this is just kind of a way to get us from one, get us out of that city area and out into the country, and then two, try to get out and do more outdoor stuff rather than just being in the house all the time.
definitely. No,
You
I
know,
bet it is beautiful though, for sure.
it is very.
Yeah, the stuff you're saying about Maryland kind of reminds me of San Francisco and like Seattle talking about
Hmm.
on the news where they had to put a sign up on their window saying, "Don't break out the window. The door's unlocked. Take whatever you need or whatever."
Oh, jeez.
Oh, it's getting bad. It's getting bad over here. Yeah.
It, I mean, at least they're honest. It's like, man, just don't bust my window. Just walk
It's
in the door.
open. Well, that's horrible. No one should ever have to live like that. It's stupid.
Yeah, literally.
But But onto like what we're talking about, man. Like I love cigars, so like when you reached out, I was like, oh, it's a pretty badass business model. But before we kind of get into the whole cigar company, like give me like just tell everyone like your background and whatnot.
Yeah. So I enlisted when I was 19 in the Army. Went in as a 35 Sierra. Went through the whole, went to Pensacola, did the whole thing. Got stationed at Fort Meade, and ended up working with NSA. And it sucks because, well, it sucks and doesn't suck, I guess, because I did over 1,000 hours of technical training and never once applied it in the 3 years there. I completely wasn't even in, signals analysis. I was doing targeting.
Hmm.
So they're just not the same at all, like in any which way. So did that for 3 years, started to recognize like, the little shifts in my personality. It started off in the beginning, I had a hard time sleeping and like couldn't pinpoint it, like just felt so uneasy. And then everything else kind of started to snowball after that. So after 3 years of doing that job, I just was like, you know what, I'm gonna get out and go and focus on myself and try to work really in place the best I can and try to adjust and adapt, which is actually really hard. I found out quickly.
Hmm. Yeah.
Quite hard. I mean, you have like the sense of humor is completely different. You have the personalities are completely different. You have the sense of urgencies for different things are completely different. So
Hmm.
it's a challenge. But got out and was just like, you know what, like I've got pretty bad anxiety. My paranoia is pretty horrible. I need to go live somewhere where I can have some solitude and try to just recoup and become a better dad. Essentially, too, that was the biggest issue. And so I moved out to Wyoming. I haven't looked back since. I'm not gonna lie to you. Just gorgeous out here, and the people are just super friendly as well. So that always helps.
Hmm.
Came out here, started working as an accountant, and then now I'm actually in supply chain and trying to transition back into accounting. And then kind of in that whole going into accounting and all of that, I was chewing on this idea of starting a cigar business, and was just like, you know what, like I need to still get some help. Like moving out here really helped me out with the jump scares, if you will, like car backfires and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And but it still didn't help my sleeping. That followed me, unfortunately. So I was like, I want to do this, but I need to still address the sleeping issue because I can't even, you know, like between work and being, a husband and a father, that was like wiping me out. So I went from, so I was like, okay, I recognize the 2.5 hours I'm getting per night, 2.5 to 3 hours of sleep per night.
Damn.
Yeah. And I did that for 5 years and like stuck it out hard. And I mean, it was just tearing me down. You know what I mean? Like it was just kind of withering away at like the
Hmm.
internal. And there's a local organization by me that I believe is still doing dogs for people or for veterans. They're called Dogs and Tags, and they do obviously service dogs for veterans with PTSD and TBIs. Walked in there and just like rose my hand and was like, "Hey, I, I need some assistance." Like I'm starting to lose my mind here a bit because I'm running off of very little sleep, and I need the dog, because that's just the route that I wanted.
Hmm.
And I've heard horror stories with like veterans taking like sleeping medicine and stuff like that, and it's like I'm all right. Try to tough it out and get a dog. But I went in there and pretty much they answered my cry for help, and they hooked me up with a year-old German Shepherd, and he's just been nothing but. I mean, he's just been a best friend from the beginning. Took him on the first weekend that I had him. Well, hell, even the first night that I had him, he interrupted one of my nightmares that I was having, and woke up and was just like happy as hell because I was like, man, I didn't have to like go through the whole gambit. He kind of caught it as I was catching it that I was starting to get bad, and then went back down to sleep and slept for 5.5 hours, and
Damn.
that's yeah, and like I've been sleeping anywhere from 5.5, which seems to be like the low end, all the way up to like 8 hours of sleep. Just because of one, he's big, and I know that he's not going to let anything touch me or hurt me while I'm sleeping. But on top of that, I know if I start having a nightmare or it starts to kind of kick up like that, I know that he'll put a paw on me or muzzle punch me to get me up and get me out. So having him has been a game changer, and actually was the last bit of help that I needed to actually start the cigar company, which has been, amazing.
So he could sense. He was trained to like sense that kind of stuff when you're
Yeah.
sleeping. That's
Yep.
pretty badass.
So and everything, at least with him and me, he goes off of the breathing change. And if I'm awake, he goes off of my eyes. So I guess my pupils, do something when I'm either about to have an attack or I'm angry or I'm starting to get frustrated. And so he comes over and he's a kind of a funny looking German Shepherd. His ears are floppy instead of pointing up.
Hmm.
And but when he alerts, when he's actually trying to tell you that you're having an issue or somebody else around you is having an issue, his ears point straight up like they normally would.
Oh shit.
And like I tell you what, I've seen that a bunch of times, and every single time my hair stands up on the back because it's like that's like I might need to sit down for a second, and it never fails because like for me with my anxiety attacks and stuff like that, it always attacks my it gets my fingertips first, and then it starts to get me on the corner of my mouth, and I shit you not, as soon as I like look at him and just kind of sit down and I'll pet him and probably like 2 or 3 minutes later I'll start to feel like my mouth go numb or like my fingertips start to go numb, and I mean it's completely like game changing when you have something like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know they could do that. That's pretty badass. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Um, you talked about your MOS was because I have an idea of what it is because I was in, but I'm pretty sure most of our listeners probably don't know.
Oh,
Can you kind of give a little more details of like the actual job itself?
yeah, so and unfortunately like I didn't get to do it. I was just trained on it. So signals analysis is what a 35 Sierra is. I think
Hmm.
it's like analysis and collection. And so you're just working with comms or communications essentially,
Hmm.
and you're intercepting and doing all that kind of stuff.
But you said you went to targeting after you said, or
Yeah,
the actual job was targeting?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Can you give them like an idea of that?
I don't know if I can, to be quite honest with you, because I mean you're doing stuff with like high value targets and things of that nature.
Hmm. Yeah, whatever
Yeah,
you want to say, it's all up to you. I remember working with a few of those guys my first deployment, and I was just a comm guy, but I was just for some reason I was just not attached, but I had went there to go speak with them to go fix something for them, like communication wise. Stuff wasn't like linking up, it wasn't like really working, so I went to go fix it. But you guys are so super cool. They're like, just sit down, take a seat. And I'm like, they're like, this is what this is, and I'm like, and they're like tracking someone. I'm like, that's pretty badass. Like this job's fucking cool. And I was there. I just said being there for like another hour, an hour longer than I was supposed to be, just chilling and talking, and you guys were just over here telling me stuff and literally showing me people as it's going and whatnot. And they're like, yeah, is yeah. I don't want to go like you said. I don't want to go too much into it, but this shit was pretty badass. So.
it's it's hardcore. I mean, when I got because yeah, dude, like I was either so my specific MOS they were I guess like full, and so I
Mm-hmm.
was old for a little while at that at in my battalion or company I guess you call it, and so I was sitting there in hold and was just kind of like waiting and like when it sucks being a hold because you just don't do anything
Mm-hmm.
you go to PT, you do your thing. You might, go to formation at the, at the company or whatever, and and then that's it. Or you're at the mercy of whatever they need you to do that day, which isn't fun either. It's like cutting grass and like landscaping and shit.
Mopping the cement.
Yeah, and like, dude, I like that schoolhouse that I went to because of the clearance that you have to have and all that kind of stuff. You couldn't take any of the material out of the schoolhouse. So you had to either spend the extra time and
Mm-hmm.
there, or you just you were good to go and you left. And I mean that's that schoolhouse. I think at the time had like a 60 some % attrition rate.
Yeah.
So it's like, dude, like I just went through some crazy stuff and all this hard work to get to it, and now I'm painting rocks. It's like brother, what are we?
The rock painty one, yeah, that's a good one.
And so I was either was 2 weeks from either being placed in my job, like being a signals analysis, or just going in at the mercy of whatever they needed, or I was going to get stationed in Bagram and do that kind of stuff, or deploy to Bagram. They actually need signals, my MOS downrange. I was cool with either one. Like I was 19, I was like, yeah, cool,
Hmm.
let's do it. And I guess it somewhere in the universe it kind of worked out, and I was about a week out from starting that whole process to go and get deployed, and then They got the call that I needed to go in, and so I ended up staying stateside. Yeah, it was a cool job, but it just it definitely took a little bit of life
Hmm.
off of my years that I had, just from all the sleepless nights and just all the craziness that comes with it.
No, definitely. I can only imagine. Yeah, if people only kind of knew, but like I said, just the little that I got to see, and I can only imagine how that would be, especially doing that job 24/7 every day, especially downrange. So,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for your service and appreciate it.
Well, likewise, brother.
Thank you, thank you. As far as like you talked about transitioning from the service to going into business, and like or just the civilian life itself, but can you kind of go into the idea of like going into business because you had no idea of how to run a business yet, right? Just you went to the cigar thing.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, really going into business, I did a lot of research on the back end of, like, especially with doing tobacco. I mean, you need different types of licensing.
Hmm.
There's different taxes involved, and and not only that, but like, even shipping can be a pain in the ass. Like, some places don't.
Hmm.
Like UPS, UPS is pretty good. UPS, you can ship a good amount of stuff. I'm sure there's some things you can't, but nevertheless, and not only that, but you have to learn the laws of your state. So everyone's state is obviously different. So, like, Wyoming, what I have to do when I send cigars out, I have to put a signature, like an adult signature, on each package. And because obviously Wyoming doesn't want, they want to do their best to mitigate, underage smoking and stuff like that, which
Hmm.
I, completely understand. So learning little nuances and learning stuff like that, that's the big part. And then I already had an accounting degree as well, so that kind of gave me a really good baseline for assets, liabilities, that
No, that's true. Yeah.
just the bare basics, if anything. I've told a bunch of people, take an accounting class at your community college. If you wanted to open up a business, just take one of those classes. You don't have to do the whole you know coursework or the whole line of accounting, but just to have that basic understanding of how to kind of look at different things is super helpful, and it kind of helps you guide what decisions to really make inside the grand scheme of business. Because I mean, I'm sure, as you can see, I mean, there's everyone's trying to give you everything at one time and trying to take as much money from you as possible,
Hmm.
and it's no different from when you're trying to start your own business either. It's the same thing. Everyone is trying to sell you something at a higher cost than what you could find normally. It's the same
Hmm.
concept. And then going in and starting the business, the big thing that I always had in mind was, okay, I want to do cigars because that's been my hobby since I was 18, and when the legal age of smoking was 18 at that point.
Yeah.
So I really liked that hobby. I learned very early on that I could kind of distinguish different flavor notes and different stuff like that out of the cigar that, you know, typically, it's a lot harder, to say the least, because when someone says that they get a chocolatey taste from a cigar, they might mean like a sweet cocoa taste, but it's not so literal. It's not like you're literally smoking a Hershey's bar. You know what I mean? Like, it's a very subtle thing, and most people, when they talk about tasting notes, it's what they're able to reference from, like, a different taste that they've acquired in the past. So that's a big thing too. But nevertheless, when I started the business, I was like, okay, in the world of craft or boutique cigars, whatever you want to call it, there's a ton. There is a ton. And I always wanted to kind of figure out a way to separate myself and bring some things to light, but figuring out a way to do it very elegantly and not trying to, like, make people uncomfortable or, like, shove down their throat. Like, you kind of have to find that middle ground. And so with me, I wanted to give back and to help people, that have PTSD, um, that need that assistance. Say, like, if they, are lacking the funds to go to a nonprofit and get therapy or get a service dog. I've told people the VFW down in Fort Collins actually paid for my service dog, thankfully.
Oh, nice.
And that's I think this $5,000 or $6,000 dog that I would have had to pay out of pocket, and it's like I wouldn't have been able to do that. it was kind of one of those decisions where it's like I could pay for the dog or I could pay for the business, but I can't do both. And at least at that sum of money. And so when I came up with it, I was like, this is what I want to do. And started kind of walking down that road of like trying to find nonprofit organizations that, I wanted to partner with and, get a hold of them and, do all of that. And, and then that seemed to be the rather easier part. And then you start stepping into like the cigars themselves and
Yeah.
trying to find like a manufacturer and like a farm that will work with you because it's an interview process both ways. They want to make sure, at least mine was, they want to make sure that, they're getting behind a brand that they can support and represent and be proud to be behind them. Whether that be knowingly or, in my situation, they're in the background anonymously.
Hmm.
But nevertheless, I mean, using their tobacco, I mean, it's your blend, but it's their tobacco and their labor and all of that kind of stuff. So, obviously they want to make sure that you're not going out there doing something off the chain. So, yeah, finding like reputable manufacturers and farms, that's a whole different animal, which took some time and sampling process for that was, fun and, again, a little odd, but it was cool. Yeah, I mean, getting into business, you just definitely have to keep in mind of the whole picture. I think a lot of people, whatever your mission is, I mean, even in my position, I got really hyper focused on like, okay, well, if I do really well, I can actually impact, my brothers and sisters and have a good impact in their lives and try to have a good hand in people's recoveries and, their journeys to success and, whatever that may look like for them. But at the same time, you can't get hung up on that off the bat. It's a good thing to know and good plan to have, but you also have to make sure you're paying attention to just everything. Like there has to be some kind of method to your madness to where you're not letting one thing slip and you're giving more attention to another. Like they all kind of have to be equal in a sense. And yeah, I mean, coming out of the military and having no business background besides I guess a business degree or an accounting degree, it's just a learning process, and you have to, you know, I mean, I'm sure you can attest to it. People coming out of the military, they have a very high standard for themselves, and they want to do everything to the best, and excel, and all of that kind of stuff. And you just have to be prepared to take some lumps and get back up and not get stuck on, okay, I failed, but woe is me. But it's like, okay, I didn't do well at that. Where did I fail? Because I
Hmm.
must be close. And then just analyze it and then go back and try it again. What changed didn't work, just keep doing it. You have to keep trying and then going back, and you just have to keep doing it to stay alive in business, at least in my humble opinion of 8 weeks of doing business. Yeah, it's been a fun journey, and once you kind of look at it as you know the world isn't burning, it's like, okay, this just didn't work, let me try it again, or maybe I'll try something different. And that's really has helped me a ton with being in business.
No, definitely. I completely agree too. With my business, I've been coaching I've been taking my first pay client since I was 16, so like just over 15 years.
Right.
Uh, but I actually started the actual business itself, like with the actual brand name and doing like more business stuff. That was just more like coaching, not really tracking like numbers,
Yeah.
back end stuff. But I actually started the whole business itself like treating it as a business like 4 years ago. Yeah, I could definitely attest to the whole like I think the military probably the one thing it probably taught me with business is just attention to detail, but also just the whole adapting and overcoming. You have to be able to just adapt, like that sucked or fuck that up. Let's overcome the situation and move on, change direction, and let's keep going. And
Yeah.
I do that all the time because I make mistakes still all the time. And some days it's just like fuck, like I'm probably more upset than other days, and then some days I'm just like I just take it like, well. you know, nothing we could do. Let's go on with it, and then try. Let's just try this again a different way. And things are always changing. And in my business, there's always like different things changing or trends, and there's certain trends that I won't do because I'm like I don't believe in that. I'm a certain way with myself. I like to be myself. I'm not going to be doing some dumb dancing stuff or whatever. So it's like I'm only gonna stick to my stuff, but how are we gonna make this and adapt to this and make it happen and whatnot and stay true to what we believe in. So I definitely, yeah, like you said, like adapting and overcoming is probably one of the biggest things I would say. You can't just quit. So no, it's a good shit right there. As far as cigars, you said 18 years old, you were big on cigars, right?
Yeah,
But what kind of got you? Because like when I don't think of an 18-year-old as just being like, oh, like, really big into cigars. I don't know anyone when I was 18 that was big. Like cigarettes maybe,
yeah,
or weed, but like what made you like actually be like a connoisseur of like cigars at that time, at that age?
yeah. So it's funny when I tell people, my mom actually was the one that gave me my first cigar when I was 18.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and she gave me an acid Cuba Cuba, and
I like that one.
yeah, and so and it's pretty reminiscent for a lot of people's first cigar. It's
Hmm.
very approachable.
Hmm.
And I was smoking it, and she asked me like probably halfway through it, how I liked it, and I was like, oh, yeah, I like it, but I don't. I like the more of the tobacco flavor rather than the infusion. And she was like, okay, and got done it, and she was like, what did you think? And I was like, yeah, I like the tobacco part, but I just didn't. It's not that I didn't like the cigar itself, um, but I didn't like the infusion in that spot. And so she took me literally the next day. She took me to like the like cigar shop, and we went in there, and she was like, "What do you want to tell her? Like what you want to try?" And I just kind of like told the lady behind the counter. I was like, um, I'm brand new into cigars. I was like, yeah, I tried to ask Cuba Cuba, blah blah blah, and she was like, okay, well, what kind of do you drink coffee? And I was like, I do.
It's a good one.
She was like, okay, well, what do you put in your coffee, if anything? And I was like, I don't. I just drink it black. And she was like, and so like you could see the light bulb kick on as it should if you walk into a cigar shop with a tobacconist behind the counter.
Hmm.
Light bulb kicked on, and she went in there and she grabbed like a sample pack from, oh goodness, I want to say Alec Bradley, but I could be wrong. But nevertheless, she grabbed me a sample pack, and it was kind of the taste of everything. It was like the Connecticut's. I believe they have. Oh goodness, it was a Connecticut Habano and like a Cameroon and like I think two Maduros or something along those lines. And she was like, start from left to right. But she was like, I think you'll really enjoy the Maduro if you drink your coffee black, and that's what you do.
That's a dark one, right?
Yeah, the really dark one. And then there's different types of Maduros too, but nevertheless. So me being 18 and being impatient and not adhering to what she was saying, which was mistake. I didn't start from left to right, which would have been like the lightest shade to the darkest. I started with the darkest shade,
Damn.
and I really enjoyed the Maduro, and like I could really distinguish like or maybe at the time isn't a good one, but I knew I was getting some kind of like notes off of it, like almost like a sweet raisiny taste and everything. But I just didn't even know how to put it into words. I just liked the blend and the combination of everything. And after that, my mom was like, what did you think? And I was like, I love it. I was like, that's that's what I really enjoy. And I remember I went to stand up to go grab some coffee, and man, my knees kind of were a little weak. I was like, whoa. And she was like, feeling all right? I was like, I don't know. I was like, my head's a little light. And she was like, oh yeah. She was like, that's the nicotine. And so, once I recognized that, I was like, oh, whatever. But the problem is when you start from dark to light, those flavors are so strong and so like robust that once you get down to like the Habano and the Connecticut, well, especially the Connecticut, you're not tasting anything in that Connecticut
That's true, man.
because your palate just is completely taken a hold of that more bold flavor, and then you have something light come in, and you're just like, what am I smoking air? But in reality, you should have flipped it, like started and like progressively gotten stronger because you could actually taste everything after that. So that kind of pinballed my interest in cigars, and then I started, Tim Swanson from Cigars Daily. So there's a guy on that does Cigars Daily, super knowledgeable dude, like awesome guy. Yeah, that's down in Arizona. I could be wrong, but I think he's in Tucson. And so he had a channel before that was called like TNT Cigars, and it was him and it was another guy, another gentleman named Bradley that unfortunately passed away, I believe, last year. And those guys were like an encyclopedia of, cigar knowledge. Taught me how to retrohale, taught me how to cut the cigar, taught me how to light the cigar, like taught me like different cigar you know manufacturers and ones to try and ones to stay away from, or to try out but don't buy maybe a box.
Hmm.
It it just really, from that one cigar at 18, started that whole rabbit hole of, you know, trying to find different cigars, trying them out. And, I always tell people it's very important to know what you like, obviously, but it's also important to know what you don't like. And in cigars, it's like, like I have a Candela that I blended out, and it's a green stick. And most people, like the vast majority of people, don't like Candelas.
It's a green stick, like
Yeah,
actually green.
yeah, I'll grab one for you. So yeah, it's it,
Shit, yeah.
and so the that's called actually the double Calero. And but typically what people get off of those is like a very, like, if you cut your grass behind you and that smell that you get after, imagine that, but in a cigar, and like that
So,
taste you're getting. And some people enjoy it, but a vast majority don't like that. And so when I was actually looking at the Candela, I wanted to see what I could do to mitigate that flavor, to kind of bring people back to smoke Candelas again. And mine, I'm very proud to say that our Candelas, they actually taste and they smell like a green tea, like an Arizona green tea. And people love, I mean, it's one of the most disliked cigars in the country. That is one of my highest selling cigars for me in general. I mean, right behind my San Andreas Maduro, that cigar is the next one. And it's actually, I mean, I've got people that buy boxes of them. Like, it's funny because they go from I hate Candelas, I'll never smoke it, to buying a box. And it's super cool. And like I said, that one cigar has kind of like a rabbit holed into having my own company.
that's badass, man. I like that green grass smell too. And I have a friend who I'm definitely gonna buy some of those from you because I have a friend who's I think would love that as well. That green hole, like you're saying. And I've never seen a green. Like, I'm not. I love cigars. When I say I love cigars, I'm not as big into it. I'm still learning, I guess, because I actually got into them maybe like no, like 7 years ago, and I wasn't even into them in the military, which is the funny thing. Like, I wasn't really into whiskey in the military. I was just drinking everything possibly, just
Yeah.
grabbing stuff and drinking it, I didn't smoke cigarettes. I still haven't smoked one cigarette yet. I remember, I think one deployment they were smoking cigars. I was just like, "Oh, I'm good." And it wasn't more of like just because of health reasons. It's more just like I just didn't really know about them or cared, wanted to try.
Yeah.
And then when I became a cop, when I came to California, I worked for, I was like a deputy, so like it's just more kind of like a different kind of cop. I'd always say there's like a different type from a city cop to a deputy. And a lot of my white boy friends in there, all veterans too, but one of them was in the army. And I remember we were hanging out and he brought cigars and he was just trying to like teach me, cut it for me and teach me how. So after that, I was like, oh, I like, like
Yeah.
cigars. And he was showing me different ones. But yeah, I still haven't got really big into it. But I know what I like right now. And then I know what I don't like, you're saying, which is pretty cool. And, but I'm pretty sure there's still, so like I said, the green stick, the Candela, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so I never heard of that. So I'm still learning and whatnot. But like I said, like, I do enjoy a nice cigar, especially I like dipping it into the whiskey and
Oh yeah.
smoking it. Um, but yeah, so I love that. I definitely said that green one. That's definitely interesting. Gotta try that.
Yeah. A lot of people, and I think partially you might not have seen those, if you go into cigar lounges and stuff, because, they just don't move for people because, like I said, that wet grass, that hay really is, I mean, it'll punch you in the throat. I mean, it's like
Mm.
either you that or you're going to really hate it. And so a lot of people don't really carry candelas in shops because of that. The customer base, they just won't buy enough of it to make it worth it. But I'm very proud to say that the shops that I'm currently in, and that I'm in 8 shops,
Nice.
and all of those shops have candelas. Well, I take that back. There's a guy in Pennsylvania. It's called Fat Boy Cigars, and he's a smaller cigar shop, and he's right now he just has cabinets, and so
Mm.
he's trying to. Oh no, I know he's trying to put more cabinets in there, and then he'll eventually take you know everything else. So just kind of waiting on that. But yeah, no, it's a very unique cigar. You'll see them a lot of times in like barber poles. I'm not too sure if you're familiar with those.
Barbara Poles?
Yeah, barber poles.
No.
If you can imagine a traditional barber pole that's like obviously outside of a barber shop.
Okay, no, no. The dark and light ones. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I seen that. I seen that.
Yep. And so, but you'll see some people like if you look up like Filthy Hooligan by I believe Alec Bradley, they do I think like a Habano or like a Cameroon, and it's wrapped with a candela as well. So it's like a dark to green, which I've heard they're pretty good. But yeah, no. So I mean, that's how some people kind of sneak those candelas in there by doing like barber poles and stuff. But this is, I mean, as you saw, I mean, yeah, this is a through and through. Like this is through and through. But yeah, and that's cool, man. I'm excited for you because I mean, there's just so much stuff with cigars. I mean, it's like yeah, as far as you want to take it, you know what I mean. Like you can get all the way down in the weeds to learning different types of growing regions and how those soils affect the flavors of the cigar, or you're just like, hey, you know what? I like the dark one. Yeah, I'm gonna cut that shit and enjoy it and have some good company or just a good whiskey, and that's
Yeah.
it. Like that's what it's all about, and that's why I love the community so much too.
And the great thing is too, like you said, with the whole veteran community that you kind of serve with PTSD, and a lot of our audience is first responders and veterans, and all of these motherfuckers love cigars.
Yeah.
So it's like I know even female cops and female veterans who smoke cigars. So
Oh yeah.
definitely happy to have you on here to talk about all that different stuff. As far as like you were talking about the challenges of this starting the cigar business beginning, but I kind of wanted to touch on like what challenges did you face when you were picking like because I don't really know how it all works still, trying to get a sense of it. But like the manufacturer, you said a farm. Can you kind of go into that? Like it seems pretty. That
Yeah.
seems like a lot of like hard work right there.
It's pretty lucrative too. Like you kind of have to like I played a lot on Google, just like different words, like trying to hit keywords to see what would pop up, or even if they would be on Google, or like just something.
Hmm.
And so like I found people like in the States that were importers essentially. So
Okay.
you wouldn't, as the business, need an importer's license. You would just buy the product from like X company that's receiving it from Y, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it kind of takes that one extra step out, and plus, that's not fun.
I bet. Yeah.
And so I was really finding people like that throughout the country, and then trying different samples of their farms that they were working with. And I found one guy that drove me crazy because, like, with the cigar and everything, like it's all long filler. So like everything is long filler, through and through. Now, with this one gentleman, he like put long filler probably like maybe to here, and then this back half was just squishy.
Now what the?
And I initially thought like, okay, maybe he rolled it too loose on the back end, because that can happen too, which isn't that big of a deal. It just it's just gonna be loose, the
Hmm.
whatever. And so I was like, okay, I started smoking it, and the first like part of that was long filler was pretty good. Got to the spot where it was squishy, and I could tell it wasn't holding an ash anymore. It was just flaking. And so then, yeah, that kind of got me mad. Not gonna lie to you. And I grabbed one of my knives and just like sliced down the top of it, and it was all short filler. And so he was trying to essentially scam you,
Hmm.
person buying it, that you were gonna get long filler, but it wasn't all the way long filler. They were gonna give you some of the floor sweepings and all that kind of stuff too. that's just nasty. You know, like it's just you know it's not a one from a tasting standpoint. It's not a consistent flavor because it's all of the leftover tobacco that that roller has on the table, and they shove it into that cigar. And then on top of that, you don't know what's going in that. You don't know if there's twine that's in it. You don't know like if there's. I mean, you just don't know. Like
Yeah.
the what's it called? The hygiene, not hygiene of the person, but the cleanliness of the work environment
Hmm.
in a different country like that is vastly different from you know the United States even. You know, yeah, a short filter cigar that's pretty gross. Not gonna lie to you.
Hmm.
In that application, at least, they do have their purposes. Don't get me wrong, but in that situation, that's disgusting. And I would never buy something like that and then blend half of it and then expect you to pay for it and for you to enjoy it. Like that just I was like, dude, like what are you doing? But nevertheless, the place that I did find that was I'm very thankful and very gracious that they work with me. You have full autonomy over the blends. You can create your own blends. You can kind of have a bit of like the whole buffet, if you will. Like you can play around with different types of tobaccos and different types of wrappers, binders, fillers. Like you can really have fun with it. And that was for me as someone that started at 18 and it was a hobby. For me to be able to do my own blend, dude, that was like kid in a candy shop. Like I was happy as all get out, man. And so yeah, I mean, finding them is hard, but you also have to get samples done. And not only that, but when you're doing samples to sell at some point, you want to sit there with like a notepad and you want to like be the harshest critic you can on that cigar
Hmm.
because especially for me, I feel a lot of pressure to bring something good to the market because I'll go out on a limb here and say that I'm the only cigar company that is donating 10% of my profit back into these organizations that help veterans with PTSD. And again, I'll go out on a limb here and say that I'm the only one that's addressing the root cause of PTSD for veterans and stuff like that, and very open about it. And it's like, if I'm going to come to the table like that, I need to have a cigar that like, I'm putting all my chips on it.
Hmm.
I'm betting everything I can and doing the best that I can wholeheartedly with everything and represent the best that I can. Um, because for me as well, hopefully I inspire someone to do something similar, like, where they donate, you know, parts of their proceeds to whatever kind of cause. And, if people look at that and it's like, oh, well, they're kind of doing something similar to Silent Hero or whatever. Yeah, I want it to be a positive notation and not a negative. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, well, the last company that did something like that, their cigars were mediocre at best, and their branding was kind of all over the place. Like, you know, it's like no, I want to make sure that if there's people that come after me, that I'm setting a good and a good for that.
I love that. I love
You
that
know,
a lot. How do you choose what organization to donate to? Like, how does that 10% work into how you, like, what? Yeah, that whole process.
yeah. I mean, really, I've got a. So initially, it started out with me doing research to find these companies and stuff like that, and then it started to transition to people reaching out to me,
Hmm.
which I've been very fortunate of. But really, just having a phone call and really trying to understand, like, obviously, like a wait list. You know, I'll back up a little bit. Like these bigger organizations, these bigger national organizations have these long wait lists. And so instead of it being a funding issue, they have like a wait list issue,
Oh,
which
shit.
I can't do anything about that.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? But like if it's a monetary issue where like, um, say like the one gentleman, he does like fishing trips with veterans with PTSD.
Oh, nice.
And I
Okay.
believe he also does like first responders too. It's not just veterans. And like so, like the money that would go to him and his organization is like paying for like their food and like the fishing supplies and like kind of everything to really take care of those guys and gals that are going out there and doing that fishing trip. And so it's one of those things where it's like you want to make the best decision, for where your money is going to be donated to. But you also want to make sure that like it's going to like a reputable place. Like I make people give me their 501c3 certificates that they have. Like they have to display
Hmm.
the correct information for me to just be like, oh yeah, I'll send you X amount of dollars that I make that month, because that's not what it's about. I need it to have a tangible impact on these guys. And the one gentleman that does like the fishing trips, like I've read a bunch of reviews of those trips and all of that kind of stuff. From what it sounds like, it's like a perfect reset for some of these guys and gals that that they really need, where they can get their mind off of all
Hmm.
of that stuff for, even if it's just a brief period of time. It's that little bit of reprieve that makes the difference in the fight. You know what I mean? If you're constantly fighting, you're unfortunately you're going to get worn down until you start to kind of do some things that offset it a little bit and give you some joy. And so that's really how I find, or how I make that decision, is one, making sure that it kind of goes with the brand, obviously, and helping veterans and first responders too with PTSD. And um, again, like just making sure it's on brand and making sure it's legit. Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. I like that whole fish and trips thing. That's pretty badass. Um, what advice do you have for veterans struggling with PTSD?
The biggest thing that I always told myself, and and the thing that I'll live by for forever, is you know take it one more day. That's something that I put on all of my posts. It's a hashtag one more day. I'm coming out with t-shirts for next month, and on the back of my t-shirt it'll actually have one more day at the top, and then have the logo and the name of the company at the bottom. But just give it one more day. The biggest thing that I would give, like piece of advice that I would give rather, you know try not to put so much weight on the bad days, and then not enough weight on the good days. You know what I mean? Like, I caught myself doing that a bunch of times. Like the good days, I was like hardly thankful. Like I was almost like sitting there on the edge of my seat, shaking my foot, because I'm like, okay, when's it gonna go bad?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, no, like, give the good days all that light. Like really love that day. Whether it's sunny and it's nice out, or if it's raining and gloomy and windy and cold. Make some hot chocolate, do something that like gets your mind happy, and take advantage of that good day. And don't try not to put so much weight on the bad days. And if you do have a bad day, again, it has not come to stay, it's come to pass. And I've lived by that too for many years. If you have a bad day, which I'm sure you have as well. You just have to kind of roll with it, man. Kind of have to roll with the punches. Maybe get a little extra comfort that day if you can. Whether that be an extra hug, or second with your wife or your husband. Whatever it may be. Time with your kid, dog, cat. Just something to kind of break that that chain. That's my biggest thing. My wife was a big proponent when I was having a really hard time for many years to change the stimuli. And that's works wonders with not just PTSD and getting out of the funk of that, but also having anxiety attacks and panic attacks and being paranoid. Changing that stimuli that's creating that negative internal emotion, and trying to do something different. That's my biggest thing. And that's what I would say is give it one more day, and you know put some more weight and more light on the good days, and take some from the bad.
That's perfect advice, man. And actually heard that recently from myself as well. Not so much when I was trying to deal with the stuff I was dealing with in the past, but even just like business stuff, and just life in general. Like this perfect advice is for everything as well. Like this, when you have a bad day in business and you're just kind of feeling like this
Yeah.
is pretty much like this is how is this going to work or whatever. But then in reality, you just got to think of it like, no, it's fine. And then you forget, you tend to forget the, you tend to forget like the great days where it's just like a nice weather outside and you kind of just feeling the wind on your face and just being happy that you're still here and get
Yeah.
to enjoy like those peaceful moments, because I think we all get caught up with just like the podcasts, and I have a podcast, but it's like you get caught up with the podcast, the YouTube, and music, and it's constantly nonstop in your ear, and you never have any peace. And I learned that you have to just kind of just take a break from that, just kind of just sit in what is life in the world itself, and just be like, take it all in, all that energy, and then the sun, and you're just like, oh wow, like it really is good. I'm just too
Yeah.
much like all this stuff in my head. So I love that though. Any future plans with the cigar company that you have
Yeah.
that you want
So
to share?
I'm working on creating more blends and everything like that, and a little bit different styles. So right now I have four Robustos, 5x50s, and then I have a Toro, which is a 6x52. In the next year or so, I want to create two different blends for like a double Corona, and then the other one I want to kind of do something a little bit different, a little unique, like a Perfecto or something like that. Or I was thinking initially like doing a Torpedo, but you know, it was just like uh, the torpedoes kind of come out different. Yeah, either you cut it right or you cut it wrong, and then just like yeah, I mean, I can't stand them to be honest with you. Um,
Do
so
who does the farmer cut it, or who cuts it to make it to that shape?
so like the torpedo shape,
Yeah,
so they roll it into that shape. So instead of it being like a round,
yeah, I see. Yeah,
yeah, it
yeah.
comes to like a torpedo.
Hmm.
But some people like yeah, I caught myself doing it for many years that they would just cut the top off and it'd be like a tiny
Oh, okay, I see what you mean now. Okay, okay, okay.
but like you want to kind of cut it at like a slant, and so it's a bigger surface area for you to draw through. And yeah, I mean, and sometimes they're like hit or miss. Sometimes like the torpedoes have great draw and it's phenomenal, and then other times it's like is it plugged or is it rolled too tight? And so to not ramble, yeah. So I mean, I want to come out with two more blends that are kind of a little bit more. Not that my cigars aren't premium, but do something a little bit more premium, if you will. So, like, the experience that the consumer would have is more premium, as in packaging would be more premium. The cigar shape is a little bit more unique and takes some artisanship, that kind of stuff. So, that's really what I have planned. Yeah, I want to continue to keep my foot on the gas a little bit and keep doing podcasts, keep doing events, trying to get in more shops throughout the country and also create more merchandise because it's Silent Hero, yeah, like it's Silent Hero cigars, or Silent Hero cigar, but I also want to be able to hit everyone, if that makes sense. If you don't smoke cigars, by all means don't pick up smoking cigars. um when I come out with these like merchandise and stuff, that's how I want those people to show support. If you personally want to get into smoking cigars, then do your thing. But for people that don't smoke, they don't want to smoke, like for example, like my wife, yeah, I want to be able to give them something to where they can support the brand if they want to. They can rep the brand and they can feel proud to have that T-shirt or that hoodie or patch or sticker or whatever, and give them a way and give them an outlet to support as well instead of just smoking a cigar. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So that's those couple things are actually really what I'm trying to press on for this next year. And um, I would have tried doing the merchandise a little bit sooner, like the T-shirts and stuff like that. Again, and when you're a cigar company, you want to make sure that your cigars are good, or people are enjoying them and they're buying them. If they're not buying them, then you need to adjust that first before you start taking on these extracurricular things. So I mean, I do have stickers. I'm currently, like I said, working on a T-shirt and working on the patch as well. And we're doing a exclusive Veterans Day patch as well. That'll be like a limited release for this year. And then we plan to every year change that patch and make it almost like a collectible thing. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's really it.
nice. Before we get going, what advice do you have any of these first responders or veterans who maybe want to get into smoking cigars, but they just never knew where to start, so they just didn't bother? Kind of like my old self when I was
Yeah.
younger. What would you give them to when choosing a cigar?
Oh
If they
yeah.
wanted to buy, if they wanted to buy from you right now, like how would they go on your site? Like, what would you tell them to choose first? I
Oh
guess
yeah.
you could say.
No, I love that question. Again, I would always ask yourself, like, what kind of coffee do you drink? And if you don't drink coffee, you know, um, what's a good liquor that you like? Is it gin? If it's gin, try that Candela. Gin goes perfectly with the Candela. I'm not a big drinker, but I did pair my Candela with Hendrick's gin and tonic, and my San Andreas Maduro, I tried that with cognac. Yeah, with cognac and Woodford Reserve Double Oak.
Nice.
Both of those, I mean, it's a great example. If you like that kind of stuff, again, just ask yourself, like, what type of flavor do I like? Do I like black coffee where it's got that punch? Then the Maduro, the San Andreas Maduro, it's called the Founder's Choice on our website. That's a great one. And again, if you don't know, like, at all, period, grab that sampler pack. The sampler pack is one of each, and I always pack them from left to right, and I always have them packed left to right. So it's that same kind of concept that I took from when I was 18. Start left and go right. None of them are full bodied. So what I mean by that, as in, there's like, the Candela is very mild. It's not going to put you on your ass. You're safe there. And so they kind of go up, and the Maduro is like a medium plus. And so even that isn't really going to, make you have to sit down. Like, you can still smoke it and still get the enjoyment of a Maduro, but it's a lighter smoke, if that makes sense. Like,
Mm-hmm.
when I blended that, I wanted to make sure that people could be at a barbecue and walk around and smoke, or like if they were at an event, they could walk around and smoke it, and you wouldn't feel nauseous. You wouldn't have to feel like, oh man, like I need to sit down and get some water, or I'm sucking. So yeah, I mean, if you don't know and you're just like, I'm stumped, but I want to support, I want to try these cigars, try the sample pack. And if you reach out to me personally, or not me personally, but to the cigar page, Silent Hero Cigar, and Instagram, or Facebook, Twitter, wherever, and you're just like, hey man, I really didn't like this or whatever, reach out. I'm very reasonable, very understanding, and we can always work something out. It's at the end of the day, I want you to get your money's worth, and I want you to enjoy that premium experience. Hopefully that answers your question.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. I love that. So you kind of brought up right now. Where can everyone find you? I know Instagram is the Silent Hero Cigars at Silent Hero Cigars, correct?
Yep.
Is there anywhere else that they could find you or email or message you or anything like that?
Yeah, so we're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it, and then my social media team talked me into doing TikTok. You won't see me doing dances on there. I'm not gonna be doing that. I'm on there too, so if you message something on that, they'll forward that to me. And then I'm on Facebook too, obviously. Well, maybe not obviously, but I'm on Facebook as well. And I think that's really it. I mean, I'm on YouTube, but like, it's not, like, I'm not posting anything, like,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So I mean, that's really it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else, but I don't think so.
Love, man. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate you reaching out. Super happy we got to make this happen. You come on and kind of just send me. I would say just send me all over your stuff. So I could put it into the links into the description, so everyone could like go over to buy a cigar. They can go follow you on Instagram. But yeah, super appreciative. Super happy that you reached out to me and we got to make this happen.
No, absolutely, man. I'm glad we got to do it on a time where you're not there roasting to death.
I can feel it right now. I'm like, appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Absolutely.